Okay, hello, my friend. Today is Thursday, March 27th, 2025. Earlier this morning, I had the opportunity to listen in to the live webcast of Bitfarms' Q4 2024 and full year 2024 investor presentation. It was truly a good listen. I'm going to link to the presentation, or at least link to Bitfarms' website where you can probably listen to a replay of the presentation and check out the associated slide deck, as well as some of the other information that was released directly by the company. The purpose of today's broadcast isn't to go line by line and essentially recreate the entire investor presentation. I do want to draw your attention, however, to the handful of things that really struck me, I think, as being noteworthy and interesting from my perspective. So first and foremost, Bitfarms is a company that's cash flow positive, or at least they ended 2024 cash flow positive with really decent revenue, with hash costs that I think are actually quite competitive, even though the price of Bitcoin has been quite lackluster lately, and hash prices themselves have been kind of down. It's still providing Bitfarms with a margin. And the reason why is because Bitfarms invested quite a bit of time, effort, and money into upgrading its fleet. And so as of right now, there's about, I believe, 18.6 exahash of actual energized Bitcoin mining hash rate that's online, right? And the overall efficiency of that fleet, I believe, is somewhere in the 18 joules per terahash or watts per terahash range. That's really, really good. From my perspective, I think that's phenomenal. And the numbers bear that out. So and Bitfarms seems quite confident that there's a potential that we're going to see the price of Bitcoin shoot up still, right, in 2025 here. So if we see hash prices go up, we're going to really see an expansion in those margins. And so Bitfarms believes that they're positioned, I think, quite nicely. And I'd agree with this. They are positioned quite nicely to benefit from any real meaningful bull run in the price of Bitcoin. More importantly, any bull run in the price of hash price, a bull run in the price of hash, I was going to say. Basically, if hash prices go up, Bitfarms is going to do really, really well. So that is all well and good. Now, a question that came up was, hey, do you guys plan to ever get to 21 exahash, right? What's the deal there? And do you potentially foresee going beyond that, right? If, let's say, Bitcoin really goes on a tear, are you going to try to bulk up even further? I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but basically Ben Gagnon, right, CEO of Bitfarms, essentially stated that, okay, hey, we're at 18.6. To get to 21, it's kind of going to be a matter of, there's a couple more upgrades that are in the works in terms of, I think it was maybe 4,000 miners, don't quote me on this, that needed to be replaced. That's going to help incrementally move things up closer to 21. Also, bear in mind that there were, I guess, a batch of miners that needed some, I don't want to say upgrades, but just some maintenance, right, to kind of get them to work as intended. So I think as we begin to see those things fall into place, it sounds as if, though, we're going to just naturally see the company's overall Bitcoin mining hash rate approach that 21 exahash milestone, right, which is kind of where the company wants to be at. And it doesn't sound like there's any meaningful CapEx that's scheduled for 2025, right? The talk was like, hey, it's going to be under $100 million. And of that under $100 million, a fractional portion is going to be for Bitcoin mining, right? The rest is going to be for other stuff. So, I don't know that we're going to really see more than 21 exahash from Bitfarms, in whatever remains of this cycle. I say whatever remains of this cycle because, hey, listen, I want to be optimistic. I want to be constructive. I want to believe Bitcoin can go up in price more. I mean, shit, Michael Saylor evidently is talking about Bitcoin going to $50 million a coin. Now that to me sounds really bullish. That sounds really bullshitish, actually. I mean, listen, yeah, maybe in 50 years we get there. I don't know that we get there this cycle. Let's put it that way. Still, it's kind of awesome and encouraging to see that, hey, we have thought leaders that are really kind of pushing that boundary. Hey, now we're up to 50 million. Who knows? Maybe another 6 months we'll be up to 100 million, a billion, who knows, even $1 trillion per coin. all of that being said, for the purposes of Bitfarms and the cycle that we're in right now, hey, listen, all I'm saying is I want to be constructive and believe that, hey, maybe we do get to 150,000. Hey, listen, I'm not going to complain if we get to 50 million or 50 billion a coin or whatever other wackadoodle number gets tossed around out there. But, from a realistic standpoint, hey, we got to get to at least 150,000 first. Shit, we got to get up to 100,000 again first and try to stay above 100,000, right? So let's kind of get there first, and then we can kind of fantasize about these, wild numbers. Michael, if you're watching this, which I doubt you are, I'm not giving you a hard time, man. It's just, you really do come up with some numbers that are very, very impressive and inspirational. But yeah, I'm hopeful that a lot of companies in the Bitcoin mining space aren't necessarily making financial plans based on some of those comments. With all of that said, listen, the other thing that Bitfarms talked about in today's investor presentation, which I thought was, again, very relevant and thought-provoking, it had to do with this idea that, the cost of 1 megawatt of Bitcoin deployment, right? To build let's say a data center that can support at least 1 megabyte of Bitcoin mining, it's about $1 million per megawatt. Now that evidently includes buying the miners as well. Ben, if I'm paraphrasing correctly here, it was quite a number. He talked in terms of like upwards of $30 million per megawatt for an HPC AI deployment, meaning if you have a data center that has the GPUs, has whatever computational stuff is going to be in the data center, in addition to the data center itself, it's kind of like $30 million per megawatt. I mean, that's astronomical. I mean, just the other day, you and I were talking about like, hey, what if it's like 5 million a megawatt? Right. But again, in that context, I was thinking just more in terms of like the data center itself, not maybe all of the computational equipment and whatever else that goes into it, but still 30 million. That sounds like a lot of money. So Ben mentioned all of this in the context of why the level of due diligence that some of these potential partners, right, the time required for this due diligence can be like 9 to 12 months. That's a long time, right? That could be like almost a year. And it's understandable, man. If you tell me, hey, bro, like we're going to ask you to cut a check for like billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. It's like, damn, I'm going to like quadruple check that everything's going to be the way I think it's going to be before we start like actually deploying that capital. It's a lot of money. So Bitfarms is certainly, I think this is very encouraging, right? They're trying to position themselves so that, yeah, hey, to the extent that there's going to be any meaningful revenue that's derived from HPC AI, the company is positioning itself not just with internal staffing talent, which includes yesterday the appointment of Mr. James Bond, right? Such an iconic name. How could you forget a name like that? Mr. James Bond to be an integral figure, right, at Bitfarms to help shepherd some of these conversations that are happening with the two consulting groups, right? And then in turn with these interested parties. So these are all really, really promising things. Now, from the perspective of someone who owns Bitfarms right now, I'm like, should I even take a look? Did we close below $1 a share again today? Could very well have happened. Gosh, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news if that is the case. All right, it looks like we closed at about 95 cents a share. Yeah, so I think today's the second day in which Bitfarms has closed below $1, or at least has had a bid price below $1. If that continues for, I think, like 30 days or so, NASDAQ will then likely send a letter to Bitfarms, and then Bitfarms will have to, enter into this grace period. And then I believe it's like 180 days from the beginning of that grace period for the stock price to attain a closing bid price of at least $1. Otherwise, we may find ourselves, right, in a situation not too dissimilar from that which Stronghold Digital Mining found itself in which you basically then have to engage in a reverse stock split. Once you engage in that reverse stock split, the price has to stay above $1 or, attain a closing bid price of at least $1 a share or more for 10 trading sessions to regain, sort of like listing status equanimity with NASDAQ. It's kind of a convoluted way of just saying to meet listing requirements, right? I'm optimistic. Hey, I mean, right, Bitfarms, we know that the stock can be volatile. And I'm not predicting that it's going to stay below $1 a share. But hey, I'm just also, by the same token, having lived through that experience with Stronghold, I'm just kind of pointing out I'm a little bit more sensitized now to stock prices starting to close below $1, because it starts potentially, right, a chain reaction of events, which, yeah, I mean, several of you have been very vocal with me, like, no, Bitfarms cannot and should not ever engage in a reverse stock split. Hey, I'm with you. I'd be hard pressed to believe that they'd want to go to the pink sheets, though. You know what I mean? Or just be delisted entirely. So again, it's premature to get into the what ifs, but I'm just pointing out we've been below $1 a share now 2 days in a row, 2 trading sessions in a row. Hopefully that will correct itself. Overall, I thought that Bitfarms presented a very compelling case for a company that's at least stable. At least I get the impression that there's stability, both financial stability, stability on the management team, stability insofar as the vision of what this new Bitfarms, that's a term that I use a lot, like the new Bitfarms, because it's like a transformed company. Hey, a vision for what the new Bitfarms is going to look like, right? And yeah, I mean, listen, bottom line, if we see hash prices do really, really well, the price of Bitcoin surge, hey, we could very well see Bitfarms participate very, very meaningfully in that bull run. Inevitably, presumably, right, if the price of Bitcoin then goes down, during a crypto winter, absent, of course, Mr. Michael Saylor's predictions of whatever, 10, 20, 50, a bazillion bucks per coin coming true sometime in the next, 6 to 12 months, yeah, Bitcoin will probably go down in price. And yeah, I mean, at that point, Bitfarms will then hopefully have a lot more clarity as to what this HPC AI side of the business is going to look like. Bitfarms was invited to speculate as to what the revenue could look like. Bitfarms declined to do that, understandably. We did get a little bit of a taste of what the cost could look like. I heard terminology like energized ground plus shell, right? So I'll do a little bit of digging to figure out, okay, what would it cost to maybe have an energized shell, whatever you want to call that. Presumably, obviously, that's not going to be 30 million a megawatt. And this is critical, really, really critical. Don't want to forget this. As to how Bitfarms plans to finance this foray into HPC AI, it seems as if though the company is not, according to Jeff Lucas, right, the CFO, it seems like they're kind of leaning more towards debt instruments and not towards equity financing. So in other words, probably not so much in the way of issuing a bunch of stock, which, by the way, how the hell do you do that when you're trading at $1 a share with, a bloated, float already of like over like 500 million shares? I mean, you get to a point, right, where it's like, what are you going to do? Issue 1 billion shares to try to raise, roughly $1 billion to that? Yeah, it's just, dude, it just gets really quagmired. So yeah, they're looking towards debt instruments to potentially finance, the HPC AI effort. And I think that sounds reasonable. Again, we're going to have to see, though. So at this juncture, we're still in this holding pattern. It's just like a wait and see pattern, waiting for the price of Bitcoin to potentially do better, right? For hash prices to do better. And absent that, waiting for some news with regard to like some concrete evidence that this HPC AI thing is really starting to gain traction and that there's a material deal to be announced. In the meantime, the company seems relatively stable. So that's, I think, a good thing. Okay, what are your thoughts? I'm going to link again, as I said before, to the presentation in the description to today's broadcast. Please check it out. I thought it was very approachable. It's not that jargonated. I mean, it's very conversational. If nothing else, listen to the Q&A. Sometimes you could get some really cool information from the Q&A, and I certainly did as well. Not as much information as perhaps we would have all liked, but I think it gave some meaningful context and color to where Bitfarms is at and where they intend to go. Okay, my friend, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again really soon.